Welcome, everyone, to today's free virtual workshop, How to Make Nutrition Easy. I know this is a topic and that a lot of times it gets confusing, it gets very nuanced, it gets very complex. We're hearing so much conflicting information from all sorts of different people and all sorts of different places, and it can be really hard to just figure out what is actually important for you right now in this moment to make your nutrition easier to manage, regardless of what your goal may be. Some people might be joining this webinar for weight loss purposes. Some people might be joining because they want to learn the best way to eat for building muscle or to improve some sort of athletic performance. Some of us might just want a better grasp of our nutrition so that we can manage our day-to-day eating to maintain relatively good health, to feel our best, to look our best, and to be able to do that without a lot of barrier, without a lot of challenge, without a lot of constant mental work to make it all happen. So if this is why you're here, then you are in the right spot. While people are trickling in, a couple of things I want to go over. First is while we're going throughout this presentation, if any questions come up about any of the things that I say, I encourage you to type them into the question box on your end of the screen, and I will do my very best to try to answer some of them live at the end of the presentation today. However, there's a chance I might not be able to get to answer them live because I am trying to condense this into 30 minutes to be respectful of your time, and we have a lot of really good stuff to cover. So in the event that I can't answer any of those questions live or get to yours, I will be sure in the follow-up email where I send the recording of today's performance, send all of the answers to the questions that you've submitted. So as that's going, please be sure to submit those. And also, again, while we're giving a few more minutes for people to trickle in, for those of you who may not know who I am, because I know we have a mix of people who know me personally or who have met me in the past, and those of us who have never met me before, a little bit about who I am and who I am to be sharing this information with you. My name is Alex McBrider. I'm a full-time online fitness coach who personally has lost nearly 100 pounds. That happened about 17 years ago, and I've kept the weight off ever since. Now I am a full-time fitness coach running the company A-Team Fitness, where we coach men and women all over the country, all over the world to lose weight with a psych-based approach. So my background is in psychology. Everything that we do comes with the mindset and the psych approach for how to actually change our behavior and shift our habits to not only see the results that we want, to do it realistically and manageably, but also to be able to sustain those results for the long term. So everything I teach you today are real strategies and real tools that we implement with the members of our program to help them see better results. And I'm going to give it to you all here during the course of this presentation. So let's go ahead and we're going to dive right in because, like I said, we have a lot to cover and we don't have a lot of time to waste. But before we jump in, I just want a show of hands. If you are on this call and if you've been frustrated with the amount of effort it requires to eat well on a recurring, consistent, regular basis, if you've ever been frustrated with how much you have to think about your nutrition, go ahead and put your hand up from wherever in the world you are listening to this conversation. Chances are good it's going to be most, if not all of us, because it can feel so dang hard to manage all of this nutrition stuff in a way that's easy to implement into our life. Because here's the reality. Life is chaotic. Your life is chaotic. Your life is busy. You got a lot going on. You got a lot to think about. You have a lot taking up your mental energy. And so having to put forth so much effort to try to figure out how to do the right things with your nutrition and to do it consistently can feel like swimming upstream or fighting a losing battle. And so if you raised your hand a moment ago, then you are in the right place. And I'm going to help you walk away today in about 25 minutes with all the tools you need to drastically improve how easy it is to stick to that nutrition. One concept I want to start with today. Now, if you were part of the virtual summit that I hosted a couple of weeks ago, this might be a little bit familiar to you, but this is one of the most crucial conceptual changes, mindset reframes that I can give you to make nutrition feel easier. And it's called the money method. Here's what it is. When we talk about calories, calories is often referred to as fuel, gasoline for the tank. Calories make up all the food that we eat. Calories is integral for any conversation about weight loss, about muscle gain, or about maintaining a healthy body weight. But here's the thing, fat loss isn't a mystery. It is math. And the way that we can make this easy to understand is to treat calories like currency. Calories are just like currency. The money that you exchange for goods and services, that is how calories work. You can think of it like money. And with these calories, we have a certain amount that we can spend. That's our income. This is our current body weight. This is our activity level. This is our age. This is our gender. These are all of the variables that go into determining how fast our metabolism is and how many calories we burn on a regular basis. That's our budget. That's the income that we can spend. And if we spend too much, if we overspend our calories, if we're over consuming our calories, we can go into debt, just like with money. And what is credit card debt? It's we have to constantly pay that interest. So we can either go further into debt or we have to make sacrifices to try to save a little extra of the money we're bringing in to pay down that debt. Fat loss is our body's debt. When we are overspending our calories on foods that are high calorie, on foods that our body doesn't need, we are going into debt. All the body fat that we're carrying is that body fat debt. And if we want to get rid of it, it's pretty simple. We just have to make some short-term sacrifices so that we have extra calories that we can use to pay down that debt. And we do this by eating a little less and by exercising a little more. Every meal that you consume is a transaction. Every meal you consume is a transaction. You are spending calories on that meal. And if it's within your budget, no harm. If you're overspending, then you are actively putting yourself into debt. And this doesn't matter what you're spending the food on. It doesn't matter if it's junk food. It doesn't matter if it's healthy food. If you are overeating and you are consuming too many calories, you are going into debt. And that results in body fat. Fundamentally, this is the most important concept to understand to think about managing nutrition. Because if we just stopped there and we think about knowing first what our calorie budget is every day, what our calorie goal is for whatever the goal is, fat loss, muscle gain, or just maintenance, then we know that's the budget we have to spend. And if we are mindful of how we're spending that budget on the foods that we choose, and we make sure that we stop overspending, that alone takes care of most of the issues that we face. So the question to constantly ask ourselves is, are you spending within your budget or are you constantly going over? Crucial, crucial. Every meal you consume is a transaction. But that alone isn't really helpful for you. That's not really one of the tools that I want to leave you with. So where we're going to shift focus now, with that understanding in the back of our mind that calories are currency and every meal is a transaction, what I want to cover for the rest of this presentation are three common problems that you're likely experiencing and three tools that are going to help you solve for those problems to make your nutrition easier. So three problems, three tools. Let's jump in. From wherever you're at home, I want you to raise your hand if you've ever told yourself that you need more recipes to eat healthier. Because you don't want to just eat cardboard. You don't want to just eat reheated chicken and broccoli and rice in the microwave for every single meal. So you tell yourself if you just only had better recipes. Eating whatever you want, easy because it tastes good. Eating healthy, presumably, tastes less good. So if we can only make healthy eating taste better, then we'll stick to it longer. If that thought has ever gone through your head, go ahead and raise your hand from wherever you're at. Or if you've ever told yourself that you only needed more recipes. Here's the reality I want to leave you with. You don't need more recipes. Because what the trap you're falling into is what's called the procrastination trap. So by telling ourselves we need more information in the form of recipes, if only we had this, we'd be able to stick to it. We are essentially just procrastinating implementing the changes by telling ourselves we need more information, when in reality we don't. The vast majority of us default to the same few meals repeatedly anyways, whether we're watching our eating or not. It is usually the same repeated meals because, again, we're busy. You're busy. So the chances are that you're creating a new recipe every single day. Possible. And if this is you, maybe you love to cook, maybe this is your thing and you love trying new foods. I certainly have worked with people like this. So that could be you. But chances are, not only are you already only eating a few recipes, but you would be happy with just a few recipes that you enjoy, that you look forward to consuming, but that you can repeat. And so the tool I want to give you to solve this procrastination trap problem of needing more recipes, because again, I'm going to say it, you don't need more recipes. You need a few that you enjoy, that are easy to make, and that you can repeat. This is the vast majority of people who see successful weight loss over the long term, as they have a couple of meals that are easy, that they enjoy, and that they repeat. And the tool I want to give you, and if you happen to have paper next to you, I'm going to go ahead and do this live with you on camera. I recommend you follow along. The tool that I'm going to share with you now to solve this problem of needing more recipes or knowing what to make for yourself is called the meal matrix. And the meal matrix is very, very simple. All you need is to write down on a piece of paper. I have a whiteboard here. I want you to create 4 quadrants, just like you see here on camera. And each one of these quadrants is going to represent a category. And I'm going to try not to butcher my handwriting. So forgive me if it's terrible. There's going to be 4 categories that I want you to label. Protein in one column or box, one quadrant. Starchy carbs in one quadrant. Vegetables in another quadrant. And then sauces slash seasonings in the fourth quadrant. So these are our 4 quadrants: protein, starchy carbs, vegetables, and starches. This is the bare bones, the foundation of our meal matrix. Now, here's what I want you to do next. Within these 4 categories, if you can do it from memory, great. Also, later you can do some researching and figure out what works best for you. I want you to list for now 2 or 3 items in each of these categories. If you happen to not know 2 or 3 proteins, that's fine. I'm going to go through some examples. 2 or 3 different proteins, 2 or 3 different starchy carbs. Starchy carbs are like bread, rice, pasta, potatoes, tortillas, etc. Those kind of grainy carbs. Vegetables are carbohydrate, but here specifically we want to think about vegetables. And then any sauces or seasonings that you can think of. Now, as I give you a moment to write this down, I'm going to go ahead and do a couple myself. And then I'm going to show you how we can use this. So I got my 3 proteins. Um, got my starchy carbs. Now I'm just gonna do veggies and sauces. So you want 2 or 3 for each category, and I'm gonna explain why we're doing this here in a minute. And let's see if I can actually spell. Oh, that I was gonna put tomato, but we know tomato's a fruit. We're not doing it. Red pepper. Okay. Oops. And then lastly, for sauces, go ahead and list a couple of condiments. Couple of condiments that you like. Can be anything. And then I'll explain what this all means. I need one more condiment. One more condiment. Okay, I got it. So now, here's how this meal matrix works. We have our 4 categories: our protein, our starchy carbs, our vegetables, and our sauces. And now we're going to pick 2 or 3 items in each category. For protein, I have chicken, ground beef, and salmon. Those are my 3 protein options. Under my starchy carbs, I have rice. It could be brown or white, whole wheat bread, and plain russet potato. Those are my 3 starchy carbs. Under my vegetables, I've selected for this purposes zucchini, onions, and red peppers. And then under sauces, I have barbecue sauce, teriyaki sauce, and taco seasoning. Now, with sauces, I recommend choosing low-calorie things. There's plenty of really good options out there. So, of course, for the barbecue and the teriyaki, I'm going to choose low-calorie versions of that just to keep it easier to stay within my calorie budget, like we talked about earlier. Now, here's how the meal matrix works. Once you have your 4 categories: protein, carbs, veggies, sauces, you have your 2 or 3 items. Whenever I want to make a meal, all I'm going to do is I'm going to pick one item from each category, and that's going to be my meal. So in this case, I could choose the chicken. I could choose rice. I could choose the onions, in this case, and the bell peppers, the red peppers, and the taco seasoning. And I could combine that into a taco bowl. That's a meal. It's got a protein, it's got a carb, it's got some vegetables, and it's got some flavor. Alternatively, I could choose ground beef. I could choose the potato. I could go with zucchini and I could do teriyaki sauce. I could throw those together into another meal. It's got a protein, it's got a carb, it's got some veggies, and it's got some flavor. This is how the meal matrix works. What we're doing within these categories is we're just listing a few options. And then when we want to plan a meal, we just pick one item from any of these boxes, combine them into a meal, and it's going to be balanced. Now, if we can do this in a way where all of the items are interchangeable, so no matter what protein, no matter what carb, no matter what vegetable, no matter what sauce or seasoning, it works. It's not going to be egregiously weirdly tasting. Like I'm probably not like the salmon is going to go with the teriyaki, maybe with the barbecue, probably not with the taco seasoning. So that one's not quite interchangeable, but it still works. Now you have an assortment of different meals that you can use whenever you need it easily. The other good thing about this meal matrix is this now becomes your grocery shopping list. Every time you need to go to the store, this is what you can purchase to ensure you have all of these different pieces that you can then combine into an assortment of different meals easily without thought. When it comes time to eat, you just pick one item from each category, you prepare it, now you have a meal. If you want something different, you choose a different item from one of the categories. Now you can start to see how this meal matrix can be really useful in terms of designing meals for yourself and making it easier. And so often, what some of our members will do is they'll use this, they'll keep a copy of their personal meal matrix, their own options for each of these categories on their fridge or on their freezer or somewhere visible in their kitchen because that acts as their shopping list. And then whenever they're ready to make a meal, they just go in and they determine whatever it is they're going to do. Okay. So the meal matrix is an incredibly helpful way to solve the procrastination trap problem of thinking you need more recipes when it's actually very simple to have an endless list of possible easy to prepare meal options. So that's problem number one, needing more recipes. Number two, I don't know what to eat. Some of that's resolved with the meal matrix, like we just talked about, but there's also something else going on with this particular problem, and that is something called the meal archetype trap. And I want to explain what a meal archetype is and why this trap exists. But the solution is going to be to embrace something called unconventional meals. Here's what a meal archetype is. Throughout our upbringing, especially in Western society, especially in the US, we have ingrained in us ideas of what meals should be. So breakfast should be a little bit sweeter carbohydrates. Think pastries, think pancakes, think sweet cereals, yogurt, parfaits, fruit. Occasionally it'll lean more savory like steak and eggs or bacon or things like that. But there's a very particular, when you think of breakfast as a meal, there's a very particular type of food you think of, category of food. Then when you think of lunch, similarly, you think of a very specific category of food. It's usually a little bit lighter, usually something like a sandwich or soup or salad. There might be protein involved, but not always. It's generally a lighter meal. And then with dinner, again, when you think of typical dinner meals, there's a particular category that those foods fall into. Some sort of protein, some sort of starchy carb, some sort of vegetable, some sort of dessert to follow. And so there's nothing wrong with these meal archetypes, except when we're trying to find creative ways to eat healthier amidst a chaotic, busy schedule. Maybe you're not at home where you can prepare meals. Maybe you're on the go all the time. Maybe you work a job that has you on the road. If we're staying trapped, when we think of, okay, what can my next meal be? And we're staying trapped within the confines of these archetypes, it can actually make it more difficult to think of something to fit the nutritional needs you have at that time. So I want us to think less of a meal as the time of day plus the societal norm plus a specific quantity of food, and that equals a meal. And instead, I want us to think of a meal as any time where we are consuming food. So it's just an eating event is a meal. Doesn't matter if it's a snack, doesn't matter if it's sitting down for a formal dinner. Anytime you're eating, that is considered a meal. And this is why it's going to make your life easier. Because we could fall into the trap with breakfast in the morning. We're on the go. We need something fast. Most people, when they are watching their nutrition, know they need to get more protein. But the trap they fall into is just eating a bowl of cereal because it's quick, it doesn't require any effort, and they can do it on their way out the door. But when they start thinking about needing more protein in this meal, they start thinking about, well, I don't have time to make bacon. I don't have time to cook sausage. I don't have time to do any of these other meal prep things to get protein into my day. And this is a very real example that I've helped people with. So my suggestion to them is still eat your cereal and just add a protein shake with it. You can have them together, but not combined, right? So they can quickly down their cereal and then have the protein shake in the car on the way to the office, as an example. And this is what we refer to as an unconventional meal, an unconventional fix to this meal archetype trap, which is if we can break the mold of what a meal should be, we can actually start to look at foods for the constituent nutrients that they provide. A protein providing us protein, starchy carbs providing us that energy and those carbs that we need. And this is really, really important because when we change this, when we start to think about it this way, solutions to our nutrition problems become a lot easier. In fact, when I make this suggestion to just add a protein shake to their cereal in the morning to solve their protein problem, most people laugh at me because it's so incredibly simple and they're kicking themselves for not being the ones to be able to think of that answer. And this is how simple this is. When we can break out of those archetypes, a whole new world of possibilities for foods come to us because now we're not limited. So, however weird it is to consume certain things at certain times of day, it really isn't when we're actually going through it. So, I want to empower you to embrace this unconventional fix when it comes to the meals that you're consuming. Here's a couple of other ways that you can implement this unconventional meal strategy into your life, right? We talked about the cereal and adding the protein shake, but what about the end of the day? Maybe you're missing a couple of things. Maybe you're missing some protein and some fats, but you're already at your carb limit for the day. Now we're kind of getting into the weeds of people that are really following a structured plan. All right, if you cook a full meal, a full dinner with meat, starchy carb, vegetables, the whole 9 yards, you might go over your carbs for the day. You might actually blow your nutrition trying to have that full meal. And so, a simple solution could just be a protein shake and peanut butter. Literally eating peanut butter out of the jar with a protein shake. Get you some good fats, it gets you some good protein, it keeps the carbs low. That's an unconventional fix. What about when you're traveling, you don't have access to a kitchen? Yeah, you can order the $30 airport salad. Or you can also hit the convenience stores in the airport, or you can pack protein bars, you can pack different snacks, and you can sort of break these foods up into their constituent pieces to get these are how I'm going to get my proteins, these are how I'm going to get my carbs, these are how I'm going to get my fats. So we can sort of hodgepodge different foods together to meet the requirements that we have without it being a formal meal. And that's totally reasonable. The last example, you're had a really long day and you're just really fatigued. Okay, well, instead of skipping the meal or ordering takeout, what if you did a smoothie? Smoothie, you can get some good carbs, you can get some good protein. It can be very filling, but it's also very quick, very mindless. Okay, smoothie for dinner feels weird, but it's totally fine. So I want to empower you to break out of the meal archetype trap and start embracing unconventional meals. How can you break up those stipulating nutrition pieces to get what your nutrition goals are without having to fall into preparing certain things or being limited to certain foods just because of the time of day? Okay. So that's problem number two that we solve. You don't know what to eat. We're going to solve it with the unconventional meal fix. The last problem is, and I want you to raise your hand if you've ever thought this to yourself, I can't stop craving junk food. If this is you, I want you to let me know. Raise your hand. And the problem with this is the justification trap. And I'm going to explain what that is and the solution, the rationalized reframe. Let's dive into it. Here's the reality. Once you've opened a package, think about like having junk food around your house. And I want you to think about before you've opened it for the first time, it's still a sealed package. How much easier it is to refrain from actually indulging in it versus the moment that the seal is broken. Even if it's put away in a cupboard, the moment the seal is broken, how much stronger the pull feels to want to eat more of it. And here's psychologically what's happening. We have the trigger action. So we have our first handful of that food. But once we've opened the package, once we've consumed a little bit of the food, we are no longer battling the food. That's what happens initially. We are no longer battling the food. Now, what's happening is we are battling the story in our head about the food. This is the internal narrative. That story could be, oh, it's not a big amount. It shouldn't even count. Or I've had pretty good day today in terms of my diet, so a few bites won't hurt. Or I had a really good workout. I can afford to eat a little extra. These are the narratives, the stories we create in our head to justify going back for more. And that's the justification trap. When we create these stories to rationalize what we're doing, to justify what we're doing, it's easy to go back for more and more and more. This is the challenge. So if this is ever you, if you've ever felt the pull to consume something, maybe you were at a party and there were snacks out and you felt okay in the beginning, but then you had your first bite and then it felt impossible to stop yourself from going back for more. This is why. We're in the justification trap where now we have to battle the stories in our head. Here's how we can fix it. Here's the rationalized reframe and a reality that I want to leave you with, a perspective shift. And that is this: saying no is easier than saying no more. Saying no to consuming a sealed food is easier than saying no more once you've opened it. This is the psychological reality. And this is important because if we understand this, then we know the most important decision we can make is not having the first bite. If we can win that, everything else will get easier. So here's how we can do that. The first is we have to be able to remove friction from good choices. We have to make the good choices easy. Keeping protein, fruit, and simple meals accessible and visible. Sometimes this means pre-prepping, sometimes this means pre-portioning. One strategy that some of our members like to use is specifically buying the fruit that's pre-cut up if they know they don't have the time or energy to cut it themselves. So it's easily accessible in the fridge. They can start eating it immediately. There's no prep required. All right, so we need to remove the friction from the good choices. But this can also work by adding friction to the bad choices, the things we're trying to do less of. So keeping the junk food out of sight, or even better, out of the house entirely. If we have to leave the house to get it, it's that much more difficult. Not buying these foods in bulk. I have one colleague who loves Oreos. So instead of buying the big family packages of Oreos and leaving them in the house where he knows he's going to be in trouble once it's open, he limits himself. He has to walk to the corner store around from his home to buy the individual 6 cookie packages from the convenience store. And then he'll enjoy those 6 cookies. But once it's gone, and there's no more in the house. So avoiding buying in bulk and generally making access to these problematic foods inconvenient by, again, keeping them out of sight or keeping them out of the house entirely. But also planning for moments that we know are going to be difficult. If you know you're going to have a late night at work or socially, plan ahead. How are your meals going to look? How are you going to plan things? How are you going to bring food with you to ensure you have good choices? If you're going out to a restaurant, look up the menu ahead of time. Know what you're going to order so that you can work backwards and figure out how the rest of your day should look. If you fall prey to stress eating, have an alternative plan in place. What other activities can you have accessible to you to act as a distraction to keep you occupied and help you relieve stress in other ways that are not related to food? And how can you set up your environment in advance to account for these moments that are likely to be challenging for you? So we're doing some predicting and some thinking ahead. So we can remove friction from the good choices, making them easier. We can add friction to the bad choices, making them harder, and planning ahead whenever possible so that we're not falling prey to impulses in the moment. Very, very crucial. But ultimately, we need to remember that saying no is easier than saying no more. So we never allow those internal narratives and justifications to initiate. Those are the three tools I have for you. We're going to solve the procrastination trap, thinking we need more recipes with our meal matrix. Those four quadrants: protein, carbs, veggies, sauces, and seasonings. Two or three for each category. Mix and match to create easy to prepare meals that are variable, tasty, and that you enjoy. Number two, our meal archetype trap. Falling prey to those categorical definitions of what a meal should be. And when we resolve this with unconventional strategies to solve and get specific nutrients that we need, we realize that piecemealing our meals together is actually pretty easy to do when in a pinch. And third and lastly, the justification trap. Realizing that once we begin eating a food, we are now battling the internal stories in our mind, not the food itself. And so it is always easier to say no than it is to say no more. And that first decision to have the food or not is the most important. And we can improve our chances of saying no by making easy choices more accessible, bad choices less accessible, and planning ahead for those weak and problematic moments. If you found this workshop helpful, if it gave you some new tools that you can start applying to make nutrition in your life easier, then I highly encourage you to check out our Food Freedom Bundle, which is currently pay what you want. You can pay whatever price you think is appropriate or that you can afford to access this bundle. And it is four different things. First is our signature nutrition framework, the Food Freedom Framework. It's an entire video training series and guide that's going to teach you how we approach nutrition so that it's easy to understand and easy to implement on a framework level so that you can eliminate confusion and fad diets from your life. That's only one of four things that's included in that bundle. You're also going to get our restaurant survival guide. Again, video and written guide that teaches you how to eat out and order at restaurants without ruining your nutrition. That's the second piece. The third is the social eating mastery course. This is going to teach you some underlying skills to manage eating and tracking your eating in social environments so that you don't completely derail your progress while you're enjoying yourself. Very important. And then finally, our 5 scripts to shut down food pushers. How many of us have been in the room with friends or family who just push food on us incessantly, even when we say no? If that's you, then the 5 scripts to shut down food pushers is exactly what you need. It's 5 verbatim scripts that you can steal based in psychology to shut down food pushers without making it awkward. And it's very, very powerful. So you're going to get all of those in both video and guide form. All 4 of those things: the Food Freedom Framework, the Restaurant Survival Guide, the Social Eating Mastery, and the Food Pusher scripts on a pay whatever you want. Even if you give me nothing, I want you to access this course and get the benefit out of it. So you can scan that QR code to access the bundle course. You can visit that URL above the QR code there to get your copy. I hope you will check that out. But at the end of the day, I only went a few minutes over. Thank you so much for joining me on tonight's workshop. I hope you found this helpful. And if you have any questions at all, you can visit the website at 18fit.com, send me an email reply once I send you the recording for this, and let me know how I can best help you and be of service to make nutrition for your life easier to manage. Have a good night.